I go by the pen name of S.E. Ellis. I wrote a book called Hestia the Dreamwalker, and I was invited to speak at Centennial Academy of Fine Arts Education to their fourth grade class, and it was an amazing experience. It was so much fun, and I hope that everyone that I spoke with had as much fun as I did. I received a huge packet full of letters and questions from the fourth grade class, and there were so many of them that I don't think that I could write a response back to each one. It would take hours and hours. So I thought it would be fun and quicker to make a video and put it up on YouTube of me reading all the letters that I received and then answering the questions that I got. So, without further ado, also, I have very poor eyesight. That's why I'm wearing these. And so, if I mispronounce any names or read anything a little bit wrong, it's because of my glasses. To Mr. Ellis from Maya. Hestia the Dreamwalker is a great picture here. Dear Mr. Ellis, I think if you read a lot and use your imagination, you can write a book like what you made, Hestia the Dreamwalker. I think having other people read it is good, and I think it's hard work to write a book too. Sincerely, Mira. And again, if I mispronounce any names, it's all on me. To Mr. S.E. from Cora, thank you. Thank you for coming to our school, Mr. S.E. I am glad that you came to our school to teach me about being an author. I might be an author someday. I hope I can find your book on Amazon. Thank you. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming to our school and talking about your book. Will your book become a series like Harry Potter or Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Lastly, where do you get your imagination? Sincerely, Regina. And there's an awesome picture of Hestia right there. Yes, I really want my book to be a series. This is the first book in the series. I'm working on a second book right now, and in my head, I've already got a third book planned out, and a fourth book, and a fifth book, and maybe some other books about some of the other characters like Lupin, Median. So yes, definitely. I hope I can make it into a series. Where do I get my imagination? Like I said in class, I think I get it from imagination. I think that the characters and the stories and everything is already out there, and I just kind of sit back and let the characters act out the scenes, and they let me know what the story is, and I just have to try to keep up and write it all down. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for coming to our school to show us how to be an author. I wanted to be an author for a while, and I think I started writing when I was maybe 7. I was wondering, have you ever read the Chronicles of Narnia? Also, thank you for the idea of writing a time I woke up on Mars. I have a stuffed pufferfish who loves to make rocket ships. Sincerely, Abby Graham. P.S. The book is called A Pufferfish Dream. Thank you for the idea. I have not read the Chronicles of Narnia yet. There were a lot of letters that mentioned the Chronicles of Narnia, so I think I really need to go buy that book and read that series because it sounds like it's a really good one. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for your talk and time. The Centennial 4th grade really enjoyed it. When you got out the idea of imagination in my head, it really helped with my stories. Sometimes I want to give up, but I remember you talked about perseverance, so I don't give up. My friend got your book, and it is tempting to read it. Thanks again, Madison. Here are some questions. To S.E. Ellis. You are an amazing, you have inspired me to write and make up stories, and I came up with a book named Apple Needs a Friend. I write at school and at home. I just wanted to say thank you. And it looks like the name is Assisor. I'm sorry, I can't, read very well, my glasses.
And also, if there's, Charlotte can cut this out. So, if there's if you say something and then you want to correct it again, you can just say it again and then Charlotte will just cut out that part.
Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for visiting Centennial and giving the 4th grade advice on how to become a better writer and maybe one day an author. I really didn't know that reading made you a better writer, so I'm glad that you told me. Audrey. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming to our school to teach us the importance of becoming an author. And it looks like the name is Chand, though again, my glasses are very bad. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming on your own time. We really appreciated that you taught us something about being a writer. I had no idea that some writers had a goal to write 7,000 words a day. I also really like that you informed us on different ways to practice writing. I'd really like to be an author when I grow up. Sincerely, Allison McNatt. Thank you for the advice on how to be a writer. I might be one when I grow up. I will buy your book. From Jeremiah. It's got a nice drawing down here. Thank you for coming to 4th grade and teaching us what an author is like. I really want to order your book off of Amazon. I think I would really like it. Hope you make another book with the same character. You could make another book, but she has a timer to save her brother. Hope you have another plan and book coming out. Thank you again for teaching us about being an author. Sincerely, Braden. And it's a great picture of the cover of my book. This is from Heidi. Dear Mr. Ellis, I'm sorry I wasn't there. Hello, Mr. Ellis. I just want to say thank you for coming to my school, and you inspired me that I may become a book writer like you, and I will practice, persevere, and use my imagination and read a lot. From Adam Seha, I think. Thanks for coming. From Luke K, I think. Dear S.E. Ellis, thanks for coming and showing some ways to practice writing. It was very nice to see an author. P.S. I might order Hestia the Dreamwalker at home. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for spending your afternoon with us. I bet you could have been doing something else. And thank you for telling me those ideas and tips. I have used my imagination on my story called Carsoin. I have read lots of books to help me write this picture book. I still have to persevere, edit, and have other people read my story. When you came to tell us how to become a very talented writer like you, it was a very magical moment for me. Sincerely, Lillian. It's very, very sweet. Dear Mr. Ellis, I am assured of your work, and that is, you inspire me. From, I want to say, Easton Lutz? I hope I'm reading that right. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for teaching me how to be an author and use imagination, read a lot, and editing. From Cole. Thank you for coming, Mr. Ellis. Thank you for introducing me and our grade to your first book. I am looking forward to reading Hestia the Dreamwalker. I'm going to try to read more so I can be an author too. I'm going to believe, edit. I can't believe it took 3 years to make your book. I know it's a long time. Sincerely, Malaya Hoff. Okay, let me switch it up here and do some questions. Abby Graham asks, have you ever read the Chronicles of Narnia? No, I haven't, but it's definitely on my list. Dear Mr. Ellis, I have a question. Do your kids want to be authors just like you when they grow up, or do they get inspired by you? From Rosie Hoffman. No, I don't think they want to be authors like me, though they are both very creative in their own ways. My daughter loves to paint and draw. Her work's amazing. She also does some photography. And my son Charlie loves to edit and make videos and make little like short movies. And he even got one of his videos in a competition at this past non-Desucon. And so that was awesome to see his video compete with all of those adults that made their videos. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming and showing us your book. I also have to thank you for telling us how to write a book. The presentation was very nice. Thank you for the bookmarks. Love, Sage. Very sweet, and I'm glad you like the bookmarks. Thank you, S.E. Ellis, for taking time out of your day to talk about you and how you love to write books and publish them. Thank you. From Yaden, I think. Dear Mr. Ellis, thanks for coming to our school and teaching us about being an author. I learned that it takes a long time to write a book, and you have to edit the books before you start selling them. I also learned that using your imagination to write a book helps you with stuff you are stuck on. I really like what you said about creating your own superpower. Or that creating is your own superpower. And think what you want it to be when you grow up. Thanks, and again for coming and speaking to us. Sincerely, Cambria. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming. You showed me how to be an author, and you showed me how to work hard, and just always read a lot. And you showed us to just never give up, which really helped me, and always take your time and use your imagination. Sincerely, Christian. Okay, let's do a question here. What is your next book going to be about? From Cece. My next book is going to pick up where the first book left off. And let's see if I can describe it without giving too much away. Hestia finds that after becoming part of the wolf pack, that she's expected to share some duties and responsibilities that the wolf pack has. And Hestia didn't realize that that was going to be expected of her. And so there's a little bit of tension there. And there's a lot more action and a lot more stuff that's going to happen in the next book. But I'll give you a hint. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for teaching us what it takes to be an author. Also, thanks for coming to our school and taking time out of your life to teach us. Thank you for taking lots of your time to write a book for us. Sincerely, Ian Davis. There's an awesome picture here. Thank you, Ellis from Davian. Thank you for telling us that we can use imagination on a book. Thank you for telling us how to be an author. It was good. Thank you that we can be. Thank you that we can be an author. And it looks like also as a kid or an adult, and that's very true. There is a famous book, I think it's called Aragon, and I think that the person who wrote that book started writing it when they were 10 years old, and I think that they published it when they were 12. So it's never too early to start writing a book. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for coming to our school and saying such inspirational things to us, and also for having a cool book for everyone. Thank you for giving us bookmarks, and thank you for giving us book ideas. From Alero M, I think. Oh, and he says, sorry that he was not there on Friday. Okay. This is from Mila. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for coming to our school. You said inspirational things to us. We really enjoyed it. We know that it's really hard to be an author and write a whole book. Even though I wasn't there, my class told me all about you. So I know all these things are true. You really are awesome for coming to our school and not saying no. And thank you so much. I would never say no. That was so much fun. If it was up to me, I'd be going to schools every day and just talking to students. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for telling us what it takes to be an author. One of the things is you have to use imagination. Next, you have to edit your writing. Another one is to read a lot. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, because I also ordered your book and it looks very interesting. Thank you for coming to our school. Sincerely, Madeline, I'm sorry, my bad glasses. And there's a great picture of me standing in front of the class. Thanks for coming to our school. Also, thanks for teaching us how to write a book and to do stuff like reading books. But I'll most likely just look up words on Google. And again, thanks for coming to our school. From Ben. Google is a good resource to look up words, but I would still recommend keeping maybe a little notebook or something like that so that when you hear words that you don't know what they mean, you can write them down so that you can look them up on Google later. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for coming and teaching us how you became an author. It was really nice for you to come, and I can't wait to read your book. It must be really good. Sincerely, Layla. There's an awesome picture, too. Dear Mr. Ellis, I am sorry that I wasn't here when you talked. I bet it was great. I wish I was there. Sincerely, Wyatt. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to Centennial and teaching us to make a book. From Julian. Okay, let's do a question here. How do you publish a book? From Malik. There's a couple of ways. The typical way that it's done is that you do all this hard work, and then when you feel like your book is finished, then you have to write what is called a query letter. And what that is a short letter, and it has a very specific format, kind of like the way an essay does, where there's like an introduction paragraph and a concluding paragraph and all that type of stuff. A query letter has a very specific format where you describe your book, and you have to be very, very concise. You only have like 3 sentences, and you have to describe your whole book and make it sound amazing. And then you send that off to a literary agent, And then if the literary agent likes your query letter, they'll say, this book sounds interesting. Can you send me the first 3 chapters? Or they'll say, can you send me the whole book and I'll read it? And then they'll read the 3 chapters or the whole book. And if they like it, they'll say, I really like this. I'm going to let our editor, who kind of runs the literary agency, read it and see what they think. And then if the editor likes it and they want to publish your book, they will give you a phone call or write you and say, we love your book, we want to publish it. And then you'll talk with them about setting up a way to work for that agency, and then they'll start working to get it published. And it's even more complicated than that, because once the agency has the book and they want to publish it, they don't publish it themselves. Then they have to take the book and go to publishing houses and publishing companies and say, look, this is a really good book. I would like you to take a look at it and see if it's something you want to publish. And so they do the same type of thing where they go to all the different publishing companies, and then if one of the publishing companies says, we really like this book, then they'll tell the literary agency, and then the literary agency will come back and tell the author. That's kind of the usual way of getting published. The way that I did it was, I don't like waiting. And in publishing a book, there's a lot of waiting that goes on. And so I wanted to get published, and I gave myself a deadline. And I said, I want to get published by such and such a date. And that date was getting really close. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to publish this on Amazon. And so I had to do all the formatting of the book. I had to make my own cover and take pictures of my daughter in that awesome costume that we got up in the mountains here in Colorado, and just try to make the best book that I can make. And then I put it up on Amazon, and that's how I published my book. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it.
And also, I know it was 10%, so I would say almost a little under 20 minutes left of filming.
Okay. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our school and teaching us about being an author. You have inspired us to be an author. Now I'd love to write short stories about my life with pets and my family. Your book looks interesting. I really want to read it. From Sienna. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I learned so much about perseverance, practice, and imagination. I will be sure to use all of those things in my writing, and I'm positive they will help. I'm assuming your book is great, and I'm excited to read it. Good luck on your next book. From Allegra Post. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our school. We all love your slides, and we're trying to get your book. I hope your next book is good. There's a picture of me teaching the class. Well, showing my slides. Hi, Mr. Ellis. Thank you for coming to our school and for telling us about your book. And that looks like it is from Demirius, I think. Dear Mrs. Ellis, thank you for telling the 4th grade how to be an author. Here are some examples, like you need to have imagination. Sammy Brown, or Sincerely Brown. I think it's Sammy Brown. Thank you. S.E. Ellis. Dear Mr. Ellis, we very much enjoyed you coming and teaching us about being an author. My favorite slide was the one where you had the picture of SpongeBob saying, imagination. I learned a lot about writing and editing. Sincerely, Colin. And he made a little book. Oh, and here's another little book. Oops. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Dear Mr. Ellis, it is hard to be an author, and you did really well. Congratulations on your first book. Can't wait to read it. Thanks for coming. Make sure to keep reading. Sincerely, Abigail R. I am saying thank you for giving us good book titles. Courage to Write a Book and Good Books. To Mr. Ellis from Brandon. Thank you. Okay, and here's a question from Brandon. Can you tell me what your next book is called? Can you write back to Miss Helbig and tell her to tell me, Brandon Cooper, write back, please, Brandon. Well, right now the working title is Hestia the Wolf Runner. That may change, but that is what I'm calling the book right now. D is the shortest letter I got, just one letter on a letter. Dear Mr. Ellis, thanks for coming to share your new book. You really taught us a lot of new stuff. The thing that you surprised me with is some authors write 7,000 words a day. Thanks again for visiting our school, and good luck on your next book. By the way, I am getting your book. From Victor V. Ooh, another book. Very nice. To Mr. Ellis from Maddie. Dear Mr. Ellis, thanks for coming to our school. I'm looking forward to reading your book, and here's a picture. That's me reading your book to my friend Ian Davis, who has it already. Sincerely, Maddie. Very cool. I really like the drawings too. Dear Mr. Ellis, I really enjoyed your visit to our school on Friday. I'm planning on writing in a journal. I'm excited to read your book, and I'm looking forward to reading your next book. I played the telephone game with my friends and had them check my writing. That is awesome. From Cecilia Irwin. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for telling us how to be an author. Because of you, I want to start a writing group. I love what you said about how authors need to practice and persevere. I got a lot of inspiration from you. Your new friend, Summer. And a question. Oh, I know this is not a question. I just want to know that you were an amazing author. From Lillian. It's very, very nice. Thank you. Dear Mr. Ellis, have you ever wrote a book and you think it's a great book, but then you read over it and it makes no sense? But then you can actually work with it? I don't know if I had mentioned this, but I used to write when I was in my early 20s, and it wasn't very good. And I would read it, and it was so bad that there was really nothing to salvage. I just had to throw it all away. And I think what it was is I didn't, at that time when I was writing, I never outlined anything. I never planned out my stories. I would just sit down and write and make a story, which is fun, and it's great practice. But as far as coming back like a week later and reading it, it's like, this story doesn't make any sense. And so, yes, I have written stuff that when I went back later on, it did not make any sense. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming and teaching our class to never give up on our dreams and how to write a really good book. And overall, thank you for offering your time. From Landon. Thank you. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming and talking to us. from Jaden, I think. Yes, Jaden. Okay, from Stephen. Dear Mr. Ellis, I wasn't there for your class. I heard a lot of good things. Thank you for telling them. And they told me. Sincerely, Stephen Watson. When you make another book, what will it be called? Like I answered previously, I think it's going to be called Hestia the Wolf Runner. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our school. From Aiden. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our class to teach us more about being a great writer. My favorite part was when you showed us to always use our imagination. I also liked when you told us more ways to practice in a fun way. From Lily B. Okay, that is a different letter. Sorry. Thank you for coming on Friday. I really learned a lot from you. For example, you told us to read a lot, practice, use our imagination, and there are fun ways to practice. One of my favorite things I like to when I write is use my imagination. Thank you for coming, Francis. Okay, here's a question. Did you want to be an author? Did you work with either with other authors or illustrators? I didn't. I wrote everything, and I had to do the cover myself and take the photo. I contacted a woman that I really admire her artwork, named Dalen Ogden. Her artwork is great, and I said, hey, can you make a cover? But it was too expensive for me because she's a really good artist, and I didn't have the money to spend on paying to get a cover from her. Dear Mr. Ellis, it was fun with you when you came. My grandfather wrote a book. It is cool to see another author. My grandfather wrote until he was, he was a great author. That is awesome. There's no name on it. Dear Mr. Ellis, you taught me a lot. You taught me fun ways to practice writing. I will remember all what you taught me because I want to be a writer when I grow up. I also learned it takes years to write a chapter book. Thanks for coming to Centennial to talk to us. You are the first author I met. Sincerely, Sadie. Dear Mr. S.E. Ellis, thank you for coming for us. I appreciate it. I'm reading your book, I'm getting your book to read. You inspire me. When I grow up, I'm going to be an author. From Tan, I think. Bad glasses. This is from Jency. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for teaching me that perseverance means never give up on your dreams. Another thing you taught me was that training is needed to make spelling even better. Another thing you taught me is that you need to set a goal. For example, your goal is 4,000 words a day. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It was nice of you to do that for us. You are the only author I've met. You are nice to us. Best of all, you told us to never give up. I never give up. Sincerely, Garrett. This is from Rory. It says, Dear S.E. Ellis. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to Centennial on Friday, January 12th, 2018. I hope you had a great time telling us how you became a writer because I know I learned a lot. Mr. Ellis, I hope that I can buy the book sometime. Sincerely, Adrena. I hope I pronounced that right. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our school to tell us about writing a book. Also, it was nice to know that imagination is part of writing a book. I also thank you for telling us perseverance is a big part of writing a book. I learned so much from you. Sincerely, Madeline. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for spending your time talking to us. I learned so much and didn't realize something that you showed the fourth grade. The thing I didn't realize is imagination. I learned that it takes time and patience to make others happy by reading your book. I'm wishing the best of luck for your next book. Sincerely, Eliza Graybill. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for visiting our school. I look forward to buying your book. Thank you for teaching me the steps of writing a book. Thanks again, Jackson Bowman. There's some awesome pictures here. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming to our school to teach us how to be great authors. Some of the things I learned from you is to always practice. I ran out of time. Sorry. Thanks for everything, Michelle. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for teaching us what it takes to become an author. Thanks what you told us to read more, and I have read more. Okay, quick question. How many years did it take to finish the book? For me, about 3. Planning and writing the book, maybe about a year. And then about another year just editing and rewriting and having other people read it. And then maybe another year sending out queries and trying to find a publisher, and then learning how to publish on Amazon. And so for me, altogether about 3 years. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for giving me ideas. It will help me in writing class, like expand your vocabulary and journaling and practicing. That will all help me. And you help me by saying that I can have someone else check my work. From Dielson. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming to Centennial to talk to us. I think you will write amazing books in the future. Thank you for telling us that we should use our imagination and to never give up. Sincerely, Rosie Hoffman. Dear Mr. Ellis, I hope that you will become a famous writer and a happy family. I hope that you will get a break from writing and have a good day. From Isaiah. Thank you. Dear Mr. Ellis, I'm sorry I was absent the day you came to Centennial Academy. Even though I was not here, my classmates told me how great you were at the assembly. Somebody told me that you worked so hard on your book. I know you worked a lot on your book and used your imagination to make it so interesting. Sincerely, Salarose Co. I think. Glasses. Dear Mr. Ellis, you inspired me to write a book which is called Duck and Ducker, A New King. I really like the Harry Potter books too. Sincerely, James Bagshaw. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to Centennial to share some really encouraging thoughts to make me want to be a writer. Your daughter was very pretty on the cover of your book. I really want to get a copy of your book, but I wish I could check it out at my local library. I hope that your second book is even better than the first. Thank you for teaching us about being a writer and with being funny. I hope I get to read your book sometime. It looks really good. I hope you become a very good author soon in the future. Sincerely, Tara Dingwell. This one's from Jordan. Dear Mr. Ellis, I personally thank you for visiting our school. It is a huge honor. I have ordered your book and it is amazing. Best of wishes in your next book. PPS, in your next book, add a lot of snakes. There's an awesome picture here. Dear Mr. Ellis, hi, I want to be a writer. And I think that's from Grell, maybe? From Reese Reynolds. Mr. Ellis, I love your book. Um, um, I'm sorry. It made me happier. Thank you. Dear Mr. Ellis, I thank you for visiting our Centennial Academy. You gave me a new thought about becoming an author. I promise I will use my imagination whenever I need it. I'm kind of turning into SpongeBob. The book you wrote is amazing. I hope you visit Centennial Academy again. You are amazing. Sincerely, Youngjin Kim, who is a boy and loves Hestia the Dreamwalker. And there's an awesome picture on there too. From Alan, Dear Mr. Ellis, thanks for teaching me. Now I can know what it is to be a writer. And I can see how fun it is. Thank you for teaching me to see. Now I want to be a writer when I grow up. Okay, good. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming in on Friday. You've inspired me to be a writer. I love to write. You've inspired me. I love to read and write stories. I know it takes practice and I love practicing. I do it a lot. Also, you need to work really hard, and I've been writing a story over a year, and I'm still working on it. I'm hoping your book comes out soon, and I'm glad to read it, and I'm willing to do so. I hope you make another book after you're done with this one. Thank you for coming to Centennial. Sincerely, Olivia. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming and telling us about being an author. Your speech was really helpful, not just to me, but to everybody. Now I know how to be a better writer, and I understand reading better too. Sincerely, Gabriel. And he's got a great picture of SpongeBob going imagination. Dear Mr. Ellis, I'm really excited to finish reading your new book, Hestia the Dreamwalker. I am already on chapter 2, and I can really feel Hestia's pain. That is how much you've detailed it. I wanted to thank you for coming to Centennial Academy to teach us about your new book and teaching us some goals. I also wanted to congratulate you on making your very first book. I can't wait to finish reading your new first book. Sincerely, Braley. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for teaching us about how to be an author. From Charlie. A very pretty letter. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to Centennial and sharing. I learned from you that you should never give up. Education is important. I figured that out. And hard work does pay off. I really want to read your book. I'm wishing you luck on your next book. Sincerely, Emily Mason. And she's got a picture of my book, and it says imagination underneath. Ooh, and a little book. To Mr. Ellis from Isis Strain. Writing rules. Reading is okay. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to our school and telling us how and what it takes to be an author. I have a question. Do you ever just like just writing a small little story just for fun when you were a kid? I do, and I write scary and normal stories, just little ones though. I have lots of stories. It's fun to write stories, but I don't like reading some books. Yes, I wrote stories when I was little too. I used to write little stories, almost like chapters, where I'd write a story one week, and then I'd have it end, and then the next week I'd pick up where I had left off the previous week, and I just kept doing that for like the whole school year. Dear Mr. Ellis, I enjoyed listening to you talk. Is it true that you wrote your whole book on your own? Did you have any help? I didn't know writing required imagination. Sincerely, Jordan. Yes, I wrote the whole book on my own. I didn't have any help. Though that said, I read a lot of books that other people wrote that helped me write this one. From Miguel. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for visiting our school and being here. You have, I think this is a question. Have you been here for years and have you been teaching kids to be smart and great readers? No, that was the first time that I ever visited a school, and it was a lot of fun. And I kind of wish that I was a teacher so I could do it every day. From Wyatt B. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you so much for coming to my school. It was really cool to see your book. I really want to read it. You inspired me to read and write, and I have one more question. How did you become a writer, and what did it take? I will also have imagination, I promise. I will have imagination to help me. It was really an honor for you to come to my school, so thank you. Sincerely, Wyatt B. How did I become a writer? I just wrote. I like writing stories a lot. It's what I do for fun, and I wanted to write a story and write a whole book that I thought that kids would enjoy. Dear Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming to Centennial. You really inspired me about writing books. I'm really inspired to write a book. Even though you told us it's hard to write a book, it seems so easy. I think that you should write more books. I'm just dying to read Hestia the Dreamwalker. But before I'm done, I have a question. What inspired you to write books? Tell me in the next letter. Sincerely, Ryland Grooms. And he's got a picture of a rainbow above imagination. I am inspired a lot by music. I'm inspired a lot by reading other books. And I'm also inspired a lot by artwork. I've seen some amazing artwork of wolves and other stuff like that that really got my imagination going and really helped me come up with ideas for my book. Okay, the last question. What is your next book going to be about? From Sarah. Like I said, it's going to be about Hestia having to deal with some of the duties and responsibilities of now being part of a wolf pack. And she was not expecting some of the things that are going to be required of her. So that's some of what's going to be in the next book. Thank you so much for all the letters and all the questions. It was incredibly touching to me, and I had so much fun coming to your school and talking with everybody. And I really hope that I inspired everyone to create their artwork and stories and dances. And I can't wait to get a chance to see all the great stuff that you guys create. Thank you.